DW Africa Link.
For decades, the tensions between Fulani herders and indigenous communities in Ghana have fueled conflict, mistrust, and division. But is peace really out of reach? Today, we are diving deep into the roots of this feud, separating myth from reality, and exploring bold solutions to unite these communities. It is time to end the cycle and forge a path to coexistence. Let's talk about this. Stay tuned. My name is Josie Mahachi. Welcome to Africa Link, the podcast that connects you to the stories that matter from Africa.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
There is a growing tension between the Fulanis in Ghana and local communities they live in across the country. The Fulanis, an ethnic group of people living in West Africa, Central Africa, and South Sudan. There have been clashes, murders, and counter-killings among them and indigenous people for years now. Now, the conflict doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Recently, 4 Fulanis were killed in a violent attack allegedly perpetrated by locals in northeast region of Ghana. Homes and properties were burnt. The attack was in retaliation to the alleged killing of a farmer by suspected bandits. Locals also accuse the Fulanis of carrying out banditry activities. So how do we end these prolonged conflicts between Fulanis and indigenous people? Joining me for this particular discussion is security analyst Adib Saani and DW correspondent in northern Ghana, Maxwell Suuk. Just to start with you, our reporter on ground, Maxwell Suuk, if you can just kindly paint a picture for our listeners, just for them to understand exactly the latest tension in the northeast, which has resulted in some deaths, and exactly what is happening.
Thank you, Josie. So last week, we woke up to the news of a violent attack on a community called Kasimpe. It's not a small community, it's a big community. We're largely farming and trading. But it's quite far from municipal districts. So it's also an area that Fulani people like to settle. Now, there was a murder on the roadside. Then the residents found this person dead the next morning after they went on a search party. They found him later on and then said that he was murdered by armed robbers.
Why was the suspicion mainly on the Fulanis? So
they said that this area has been a hotspot for armed banditry activities, armed robberies, terrorizing people. And I tell you that information from the community says that as of any time from 7 p.m., people cannot move. And some of the robberies even occur in the daytime. So, and it is when they are robbing, they echo what they hear in the background. There's people talking. They speak in Fulani language. So they mostly, the natives just feel that these are Fulanis who are causing this kind of attacks on them. The police admit that the place is a hotspot, but they are helpless because, they are not so close to, they don't have a police post nearby them, and they cannot be patrolling the area or motorbikes. It's even dangerous for them as well, let alone the community members. So this is what actually triggered. And they went in and burned down their house, burned their motorbikes, harmed many of their cattle, killed about 4 people, and some were even, we do not know the exact number. The Fulani says there are up to 6 people who died, but the native says there were only 4 people that died. And the security they uncovered more dead bodies the next day after they went on a search party to see how many people were not accounted for. And this is where the things are. It's been tension actually up to now.
Now, Adib, you are a security analyst. I mean, this is your field. And from your security lenses, why are we recording these conflicts and tensions?
So we have the immediate causes, then we have the long-term ones. So like Maxwell indicated, the immediate cause would be a robbery incident that would be conveniently blamed on the Fulanis. And for us at the JTK Center, we have documented at least 5 incidents where Fulanis have been blamed for robberies, which ended up in the community staging reprisal attacks. Some time ago, we've had to deal with one at Zakoli, in which a Fulani community was attacked and several people killed because, according to the locals, there was a robbery incident in which a local teacher was killed, and they suspected that it was the Fulanis who perpetrated it. So they went out and attacked and killed any Fulani they could lay their hands on. Just last year, there was another community in the northern part of the country where a robbery incident happened, and some individuals were badly hurt. They blamed it on the Fulanis, went and attacked the Fulani chief's palace, set it ablaze, and went after the chief at the local police station. It had to take my intervention. I had to quickly get in touch with the Inspector General of Police. He called his commanders on the ground, and something quick had to be done. Otherwise, more people would have been killed that day, and probably the police station would have been burnt. However, when you go deeper, you would realize that there are already existing tensions over lands, over access to scarce commodities, because the Fulanis are nomads. They move according to climatic conditions. So because of climate change, they are moving more towards the tropics. And when they get to the tropics, the locals blame them for invading their farms and destroying their crops and all that. So it's a plethora of issues, you know. Some of them are cultural in nature. We're talking about land, we're talking about farms, we're talking about some who just feel the Fulanis don't belong here. I mean, they should just transit, but not stay there. So it is something that has been happening for some time now. It's not new. And we are recording more deaths because of the new media. You know, now information flies faster. But it is a conflict that has been persisting for some time now, and it's not exclusive to Ghana, but even the wider West African sub-region.
Right. But from what you're just saying, Adib, and saying that it's because obviously now there's a wider lens, which is the media, and this thing has been happening for decades. Why has it taken so long? We're talking of decades here to find a solution to this crisis. Are you also, looking at someone who's in this security field, surprised that it is actually proving tough?
Our inability to deal with the issue stems from the fact that we have failed to deal with the deep-seated socioeconomic and geopolitical deficits that is creating that enabling environment for the violence to exist. In Ghana, for example, anytime there is skirmishes between the locals and the Fulanis, what the government usually does is to deploy soldiers and police personnel, impose a curfew, and stop the belligerence. And when the belligerence stops, we think we have solved it. But there are deep-seated issues. I mean, issues over where the cattle would graze. So for countries such as Benin, they have established corridors where the cows or the cattle go through when they are from other countries. They transit to move on to another country. But here we lack the corridors, okay? As a result, it's a free for all. The cows move from one farmland to another. A friend of mine in the north just recently complained over something that had happened on his farm. He said he had cultivated his crops, left it there on the farm to pick it up the following day. Unfortunately, that night, cows came in and ravaged the whole place. So this has been a concern for a lot of locals. In my opinion, has resulted in some of these violent situations we are seeing. Mm-hmm. And in the Afram Plains, for example, there are some ranches that have been provided for the cows to graze on. Unfortunately, when I have been there, you go there, the ranches is as empty as the desert. There's no food for the cows, there's no water, there's no nothing. So the Fulanis are not also encouraged to take their, kettle to the place. So if the government is able to look into the issue of creating a corridor, providing ranches, and educating the people to understand that, look, there are processes to follow, even if you feel that you have been wrongly treated or unfairly treated. When the cows come in and destroy your crops, you don't have to take matters into your own hands. You have to go through the police. So the police will investigate and the necessary actions taken in accordance with the law. And there's a need for stakeholder engagement, also the chiefs and the young people, to get them to understand this fact and not to resort to lawless means to addressing their grievances.
Right, right. And now, Maxwell, you've been reporting a lot about this story. And as Adib just also mentioned about the locals, I just want to know from you, what have both the Fulanis and the locals been saying about why the tension is not ending? It's gone on for long now.
House box every Fulani as a criminal, and the Fulanis says that it is not all of them that are criminals. They, mind you that they've been Fulanis who were there long before their grandfathers were born here, and they became almost part of the community. So, and most of them are even heading the cattle of the residents. So they don't find themselves part of this. But you see, when there is a problem, they box all of them together and they brand them as criminals, as suspects, and as nefarious human beings. So the Fulanis, I think just yesterday they held a meeting to find a solution to this problem. And they really put their stand that it's a nomadics. And the nomadics, the Fulanis don't own land. Whoever accepts them, the chiefs who accept them, collect the cows, they have to pay to royalty to the chiefs to settle on the lands that they come for a short period of time for grazing and for settlement. So it is the natives, the landowners, the chiefs, they will collect them and allow them to settle. They will not do that in consultation with the native Fulanis. But then when there's a problem, they box all of them together.
If this is happening, Maxwell, then what is the police saying, or are they doing anything about such claims? Because obviously the Fulanis have also been accused of undertaking banditry activities.
That is correct. And in this matter, for instance, this morning I'm told that the investigating team went into the community, started searching for names, and the community is preparing that if they arrest anybody, then they are arresting the entire community. So that is also another ticking conflict waiting to erupt.
What about the chiefs?
They will not even comment.
They will not be arrested.
They will not be arrested. They will not make a comment anymore. So, and this is not the first time they arrested. One Fulani was killed in 2022, just in that same community because of alleged robbery. When the person was killed, the National Association of Fulanis demanded the arrest of residents there. And by the night time, they had released the people because of pressure. So you see, however, they gave a bond that they were not going to repeat that. But for 2 years consecutively, they felt the number of people that have died and the number of people that have been maimed by these bandits is so much, and their freedom is no longer, they can no longer move freely. So this is what warranted the attack, and they want to flush them out of the area. They are now hanging. If you ask, depending on who you ask, if you ask the natives, they'll tell you that we want them out, they're terrorizing us. If you ask the Fulanis, they'll tell you that the people are misdirecting their issues to us. Let me conclude that. Let me add that the Fulanis' concerns are that it is not every Fulani who is a criminal, and even the criminal activities, they do it allegedly in conjunction and in consultation with some of the natives. Most likely they are dressed like Fulanis to mimic them. They just pick one or two words like them and then speak like them. So people will generalize that they are Fulanis, but most likely they are not the people who are committing the crime. And that is where their limitation is. They don't have people who can speak for them. They don't really, when the crime happens, people come in and they say, oh, let peace occur. So and then that's how the whole thing will end. So a difficult process for them in terms of being heard and accessing justice.
Right. Adib, do you want to add something on this? Because this is quite a serious issue that the chiefs are collecting money, are collecting cows, are collecting almonds, whatever they're collecting from these people, but they are not protecting them. Now, in terms of security, what needs to be done? Because these are high-level people doing these chiefs. When you say chiefs, and when it comes to law, the police don't arrest them, they're never arrested.
Well, there's the need for law enforcement because when crime is perpetrated and nobody is held to account, it motivates people to perpetrating the crime also, hoping that they would also be left off the hook. Law enforcement has always been a major issue. A lot of killings have happened in that regard. Unfortunately, no one has been held to account. I've documented quite a number of cases, and the families still get in touch with me to find out if I've made any progress so far as that is concerned. I have followed up on countless occasions with the police to get to understand what is going on with those cases to no avail. And that is being a major problem. And it goes either way. We've had crimes perpetrated by the Fulanis and crimes perpetrated against the Fulanis as well. We are very accustomed to waking up and seeing in the papers, on TV, listening on radio, that 2 Fulani men have been arrested for sexually assaulting a woman. 2 Fulani men have been arrested for armed robbery. 2 Fulani men have been arrested for this and that. Description of always adding Fulani when they are Fulanis and not adding any other ethnic group, because I've always indicated that, look, there's no ethnic group without criminals, okay? So it is absolutely unacceptable for you to paint all Fulbe's with a single stroke of brush because of the actions of a few people. You can imagine if someone says 2 Ashanti men have been arrested, 2 Dagomba men, 2 Ga men, how unpalatable it sounds to the ear. But we are very much accustomed to 2 Fulanis have done this, Fulanis have done that.
How does one identify a Fulani?
That is the problem. Even as I speak with you, I have been described as Fulani before. When I was growing up, I used to be called Fulani. Even to date, my friends still, call me, Fulani. The thing is, it's impossible to identify with the person's looks, okay? You see, criminals can attack and mislead investigators by speaking a language that is not necessarily theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming I'm a criminal and I speak English on a normal day, I would try speaking a language that is remote from me to throw off the investigators, okay? So people would engage in, I'm not saying in any way that Fulanis, we don't have some Fulanis who are, the bad guys. We do have bad guy Fulanis. We do have bad guys, the Gombes. We do have bad guys, the Asantis. However, some individuals who might not necessarily be Fulanis would engage in these robberies and other crimes and mislead people because they would dress like the Fulanis and they would speak like the Fulanis. And immediately we say, oh, it's the Fulanis who did it. And we'll not limit it to just a group of Fulanis. We say all of the Fulanis are criminals. And that is the problem. And that is what is consolidating the stereotypes and making the locals very belligerent towards the Fulanis in some cases.
How would you define a Fulani? Just to also carry along our listeners, to understand they might not be from West Africa, from Ghana or Nigeria. What is a Fulani? Who is a Fulani exactly, Adib?
The Fulani is the language, and the people are the Fulbes. They are mostly nomadic people who are scattered all across the West African sub-region, and they are mostly on the move. And I've always said that, look, anywhere you were born, at a point your family didn't live there. They moved from somewhere to settle where you are today. All right. So we have different types of Fulanis. Some, they used to be very nomadic, but now we have what we call the sedentary Fulanis, who are town dwellers. They are engaged in other forms of businesses, not necessarily being nomads. Even our former second lady, Samira Baumia, is a Fulani. As I speak to you, my wife is a Fulani. She was born in Accra. She does everything here. She's engaged in businesses here. Okay. And we have some Fulanis who are actually 3rd, 4th generation Fulanis, because Fulanis have always been part of Ghana. We had Fulanis who fought in the colonial army. And so when you go to the military cemetery in Accra, you see Seydou Fulani, Salifu Fulani, they all fought for the country. And their great-great-grandchildren are here. And people see them as not Ghanaian enough, you know. And I think that is the saddest bit.
Right, right. But many Fulanis are allegedly herdsmen. And do you think not finding an arrangement for the grazing of their animals in rural communities, Adib, where farmlands are, is a major trigger?
Absolutely. There's no arrangement. It's a free for all. When the cattle come in, you know, they graze when it is available, even if it has to involve them grazing on people's farmlands. Some Fulanis are meticulous enough to ensure that it doesn't happen. Some do it deliberately, and some, I must say, accidentally, you know, because sometimes they move with thousands of cows, and it's very difficult to control all of them at the same time. So sometimes the animals stray into people's farms, and that becomes, you know, the problem. And so we need to have a corridor of some sort, you know. So if you're coming from the Oti region of Ghana, you would have a corridor that you would use all the way to maybe the Ashanti region, all the way to the Afram Plains area. If you're coming from the northern frontier, there should be a corridor. If you're coming from, you know, the western part of the country, there should be a corridor as well. But the problem is that the borders, they are so porous. They come in just from anywhere.
Okay, now as we are about to wrap up our discussion, Maxwell, you just heard from Adib here in terms of the law enforcement. It needs to be actually so active to stop this. But have there been any forms of resolutions over these conflicts across the country by the government itself or maybe state agencies?
Well, for now, personally, we do not see what the government is doing, except to maybe sometimes find that it remains a crime for you to kill somebody or to attack somebody without justifiable proof like this. So when it happens like that, I think most likely they are arrested, and either investigation will find them culpable to be worthy of jailing or being acquitted again. So this is how it is. And then so far, nothing
from the government. Okay. Now we are wrapping up our discussion. Adib, the Fulanis are not just in Ghana, and the concerns obviously go beyond Ghana. How should the sub-region handle this situation, and what can really be done to restore calm to such communities where these Fulanis reside?
We need to be very careful with this issue and approach it as a national and sub-regional security priority. If not, extremist groups could exploit their grievances, recruit them, and use them against us.
Security analyst Adib Saani and our own DW correspondent in northern Ghana, Maxwell Suuk, many thanks for joining us.
Get the stories that are shaping the continent here on Africa Link.
Now, at the Africa Link podcast, we always look across the continent to see how the stories and issues we are dealing with play out or at times even overlap. Fulanis are also in Nigeria and control a major sector of the country's livestock economy. The government there wants to reform the livestock sector to make Nigeria become a cow superpower. Its dairy market is worth billions, but 90% of local demand is imported. Most cows are owned by pastoralist Fulani herdsmen who also spark conflicts with locals. So how is Nigeria trying to bring out proactive reforms? Baba Gelzama of the Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria has been talking to my colleague DW's Christine Mundwa on this subject.
You know, the cattle breeders we have in the country, they own the ownership of 95% cattle in the country. And they are all traditional cattle breeders who are practicing the primitive system of animal husbandry they inherited from their forefathers. because there was no attempt by any of the first administrations to try to modernize the trade for them, to understand how valuable is the business for them. So they are today doing it as a way of life, as a source of livelihood, in the traditional way, as the only option they know to do for the cows to survive and for them also to survive, because their survival depends on the cow's survival. So you see, because of this traditional practice, anything new coming into it, it has to be a gradual process. It's not something they can embrace immediately, because their peculiarities have to be taken into consideration before you come up with a model of settlement that can enable them transform from the traditional system to the modernized system of animal husbandry. It has to be a gradual process for us to attain the mechanized system of animal husbandry.
Africa is changing. Don't get left behind. Tune in to Africa Link.
That's it for this edition of Africa Link. Remember, you are not just a listener, but a crucial part of our community, and your engagement can help shape the direction of our discussions. We value your insights and encourage you to share your thoughts with us. Please remember to follow so you can catch all of the Africa Link podcast episodes. This podcast was co-produced and edited by Isaac Kalechi. My name is Josie Mahachi. Thanks for listening. Until the next one, it's bye for now.
DW News.
This is Mimi Mefone with the DW News.
A heated debate is unfolding in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, after news